All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope my voice projects to the back. If not, there's plenty of seats in the front. So this is CS46B, Introduction to Data Structures. My name is Kai Horstman. I was going to show you how to get to my webpage. Just type Kai Horstman into Google. That's my Google Plus page. You don't want that. Let's go to my home page, San Jose State. 46B, and then we have a link here, and here we are with the green sheet. So today I'm going to go over the green sheet, what we're going to be doing in class, what you need to be doing by next Tuesday, and then those of you who are registered in the course can leave. It should probably take a half hour or so, depending on whether people have questions. Those who want to add should stay on to get an add code. There will be an add code for everyone. We have a capacity of 120, so relax. It's not going to be a problem. All right, so this is the Introduction to Data Structures class. It's the second semester class in the CS core curriculum. So the assumption is that all of you have had a semester's worth of programming in Java. If you did not have a semester's worth of programming in Java, this would be an excellent opportunity to leave the room because you simply need that. So it's kind of an enjoyable class because 46A is a challenge for a lot of people. Programming, to learn programming is not at all easy, but you've come this far, and so now you can put all of this to good use and learn more advanced techniques. And learn, what data structures are, how they work under the hood, learn something about algorithms and efficiency, and really get a taste of not just what programming is all about, but what computer science is all about. So I think you'll find it interesting and less stressful than 46A. Also, fortunately, there's not quite as much material that needs to be covered. So we'll be able to move at a bit more leisurely pace, but we'll also get into some things that are going to make your head hurt once in a while that are just inherently more complex. You'll notice when those things come up. So the textbook is the same textbook as what you've been using last semester, the Java Concepts book. So if hopefully you didn't sell it. If not, you're just going to have to get yourself another copy somehow. So in the green sheet, you'll find here, what the ISBN is and so on. So what are you going to be learning at the end of this class? You will hopefully know how to use data structures that collect stuff for you, and that's incredibly useful. Just about every bigger program needs to collect a whole bunch of items for fast access, for convenience in programming, and so you'll learn what choices are available to you. And those are available in the standard library, but you'll also learn how they work, what goes on under the hood, so that you can make informed choices. And again, like I said, you'll start learning how to develop fancier algorithms, how to measure how effective, how efficient these algorithms are, and so you won't just take canned pieces from the library, but you'll also be creating your own. And it'll be a different kind of creativity. So there's a lot of different algorithms, data structures that we're going to go through. But the other part of it is, if you think back of 46A, particularly the lab part, there was a big push on not just making you able to write simple programs, but also to make you an effective programmer as programs get larger, to master basic skills of software engineering. And we're going to be ramping that up again in this course. There'll be a big focus on testing, so that you think about testing as you write your programs. There'll be a beginning of focus on group development, where you learn how to put code into a shared repository, how to work with others. There'll be more treatment of tools such as the debugger in more difficult situations. So if you love the debugger in 46A, you'll see much more of it now, simply because the kind of tasks that you're going to be asked to do are getting to be more complex, and you need to be able to use those tools efficiently. There'll be, just like in 46A, there'll be 2 exams. They'll be here. You will be bringing your laptops to the exams and work with them on the laptops. It'll be an interesting experiment to see whether the wireless network can handle 120 simultaneous logins. And we'll all find out. Programming assignments. There will be lots of programming. It'll be, again, just like in 46A, 2 assignments per week. So it'll be 1 assignment, but you have to submit two portions, the draft in the middle of the week and the completed assignment at the end of the week. So we'll have lectures Tuesdays and Thursdays. On Wednesday night, a draft is due. And it worked beautifully last semester. The day after the draft was due, I got lots of questions in class that said, what the heck were we supposed to do? And so I'm fully expecting the same thing again. So when you get all confused with the draft the next day in class, you should ask copious questions. Now I realize it's going to be more tedious to ask questions in such a large classroom, but you're just going to have to try to figure out how to yell the question. I will take all the time that is necessary to walk through any questions that you might have, no matter how much of the answer they might give away, as long as they're good questions. If you say, what's the solution? Of course I won't tell you. But if you say, I'm confused about this part, can you give me a hint? I will gladly give you a hint, and we'll just do some live coding in class and you can see how it goes. So be prepared to ask those questions. If no one asks questions, I have plenty of stuff that I can lecture from to fill the time, so you don't want that to happen. So on Saturday nights, the final version is due. I realize it's kind of cruel to have to set the due date set on Saturday, but there's no law that says that you can't simply finish it on Friday. In fact, that's always my strong recommendation, and that's why I set the days like that this time. My strong recommendation is that you would always want to turn in every assignment 24 hours before it's due, because one of 2 wonderful things can happen. You might actually get it done, and you don't have to worry those next 24 hours. You can relax. Or, God forbid, you didn't get it done, but now you have another 24 hours to actually get it done. So you can't lose with that strategy. Try to turn it in Friday night, and one way or the other, something wonderful will happen. All right, so class attendance. Class attendance is mandatory. You're expected to show up at every class here with your laptop. And I will figure out whether you're here in 2 ways. One is that I will be asking questions in class that you get to answer, and everyone gets to answer just by putting an answer on the software that collects your answers. And so I'll know whether you were here. And the other thing is we're going to be having lots of labs. So generally, I don't like to lecture for more than 20 minutes, half an hour, because it's a scientifically proven fact that no student can listen for more than 19 minutes before falling asleep. And so I will be lecturing for probably a little bit longer than that. Then we'll wake you all up, and then we'll do a lab. And then, so we will do the labs here. It's not the greatest environment for the labs, but we'll somehow make do. And me and a couple of lab assistants will walk around, help everyone out who might be in trouble, and also listen as to the kinds of issues that you're encountering. And then at the end, about 15, 20 minutes before the end of the class, the lab will stop, and then I will talk about some of the things that I have learned from you, where you guys had trouble, where you guys had interesting new ideas that had never occurred to me, and also answer questions about the lab. It tends to work well because when I lecture, everyone is under the mistaken impression that this actually makes a lot of sense, and they understand something and they learn something. And it's been very typical that then as soon as people had to do a lab assignment that was exactly about the stuff that I had just lectured about, everyone realized that they don't have a clue. And then all of a sudden the material in the lecture becomes more relevant. And when I then give some interesting tidbits after the lab is over, people are much more interested. So having these labs in class has been working well, and we'll try to have a go at it again. So that means every one of you must bring a laptop to every class. So The one issue that we're going to be having here is unfortunately power. That wireless power has not yet been invented. And so you might have to invest in a new battery so that you can get through at least the time of the lab. But we'll also once in a while during the lectures, I'll ask you to whip out your laptop and answer a clicker question. Did any of you use clickers in any other class? Okay, so some of you are familiar with it. There's these little devices, but they cost some amount of money. And since we all have laptops, I felt it was silly to make you buy one. And so we'll just do the clicker stuff on the laptop. So every once in a while, I'm going to project a question on the screen, and it's going to say, clicker question number 1792 or something. And then you're just going to go into the software, answer the question. You'll get 4 choices, A, B, C, D. You can answer it, any of those choices. You're not going to get penalized for giving the wrong answer. I just would like to have an idea as to how much you followed along, which parts you understood, which parts you didn't understand. And also I want to give you the opportunity of changing from listening mode into thinking mode. So these things have proven to be pretty effective, and we'll do the best of it without having to actually buy the hardware. The other thing is when you have questions, and of which you will have many, because otherwise I will have failed. I don't want you to email me the question, because there's 120 people registered in the class, and if I have to answer the same thing 120 times, I'm going to go crazy. So we're going to have a discussion board. We're not going to be using the same software that we used last time, because it turns out not to scale well, particularly in the other sections that we have. So it's a different piece of software, but it's the same thing. You sign up. Whenever you have a question, you put the question on the software. It's called Piazza. Maybe you can bring it up real quick. So it looks like this. You want to ask a question. You click here on New Post. It says Post a Question, and you'll figure it out. It's pretty clear. And then the question is there for all to see, and you've just earned a point. You get a point for every question that you ask. If, God forbid, you know the answer to a question that someone else asked, put in the answer, and you'll get a point. If I think it's a great answer, and I'll reward it by saying, great answer, you'll earn another point. So go for it. It can't hurt. Why do I make a big deal out of it? Because it's something that everyone has to learn these days to be effective with. Every time that I do any kind of programming at all in something new, I don't have a clue what I'm doing either. And soon I find myself in this situation where I have to go to some discussion board, to some news group, to some mailing list, and ask a question. And so being able to ask questions, to answer questions, is just a part of what every software engineer has to do these days. And every once in a while I go there to answer a few questions, not because I feel particularly helpful, but because it's important in life that you answer a few questions so that then when you ask a question, that someone else says, oh, he's been answering a bunch of questions for the yokels, I'll answer his hard question. So it's a give and take in technical groups that I just want to make sure that everyone gets a flavor of. So if you email me a question, I will put it on Piazza and email you back and say, look the answer up on Piazza where I just put it. And I will just have had a moment of remembering your name in an unfavorable context. So you might as well just put the question on Piazza in the first place. Now, there's always a few students who say, gosh, it's so embarrassing. Everyone in class will see just how dumb I am. And I have never found that to be true. Last semester, there was one person who put one dumb question after another. And everyone else in class was so grateful that that person asked all these questions because they all had the same questions. And so it was the exact opposite, that person was actually admired in class for being very persistent and for being very thorough in asking these questions. So don't worry about it. No one is going to think that that the questions that you ask are not worth asking. As long as you can put the question down it's worth asking. So go for it. We had hundreds and hundreds of questions and answers last semester in my section of 46A, where we had a quarter of the students. I think we had over 800 messages in the end. So people have been using that system very, very effectively. And most questions, of course, were about the homework. How do I do this? How do I do that? And those are very appropriate questions. I have been very generous about giving hints, and probably half of the homework assignments last semester someone could have cobbled together by simply reading through all of the questions and answers and forming the union of all of the hints. So definitely read, submit, answer, participate in that thing. It is extremely useful. All right. Oh yeah, the other thing is, so I'm not going to go and show you the PowerPoints that the publisher provided for the textbook. And the reason is that I'm not adding any value by doing that. You can read the textbook yourself. You are able to do it. And it's easier to read the textbook where it has all the words than to read through the PowerPoints that have half of the words missing and try to figure out what those words were. So I'm really not adding any value at all by regurgitating what's on the textbook. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you read the textbook before class, and then I will go over in class about those things that the textbook doesn't talk about, the tricks, the things that are kind of difficult, the things where one has some heuristics about something that often works but not always, the way how people actually get started. And sometimes I will go over some of the more difficult things just by going over those aspects one more time, maybe with an example or something. So I will try to figure out where your difficulties lie and spend all my time only on the difficult things so that I'm not wasting any time where I don't add any value. I'm not adding any value, but telling you again the easy stuff. So the best way for me to find out where your difficulties are is if you ask lots of questions. If I get lots of questions about a particular concept on the discussion group, then that's a signal for me that I better spend a bit of extra time on that particular topic. So if you want to slow me down, ask more questions. So how do I know that you're actually doing that reading? Of course, I trust you, and as Lenin said, trust is good, but control is better. And so the bit of control is that before every class, midnight before every class, you're asked to complete a short quiz, 10 questions, that's on the Desire to Learn system. So we have class on Tuesday and Thursday, so every Monday and Wednesday evening, you should be planning to read the textbook for some amount of time, whatever it takes, a half hour, an hour. You should go and take that quiz on Desire to Learn. You get points for every question that you get right. And it's not optional, it's mandatory. I will look at every Tuesday and Thursday morning, and will send an unpleasant email to everyone who did not do their quiz. So I really want you to do that. I do fully realize that a whole bunch of people are going to go straight to the quiz and start going through the quiz without doing the reading. But that's okay, because I'm trying to design the quizzes so that when you see question number 1, that you say, holy cow, what the heck is that? And start opening the textbook right then and there. So all I want is that you read through the textbook before coming to class so that you're prepared for what's going to be happening in class. And I will be enforcing that with those quizzes. So that brings me to a Desire to Learn. So on the green sheet, which you get from by going from my San Jose State page, and no, that was this page. All right. On the green sheet, there's a link to the schedule. So here's the schedule. Let me go from here because the recording will. Yeah. So here's the link to the schedule, and so we're going to be having to worry about Desire to Learn. So that's the system that most of you are familiar with. Let's log in here. R46B. And so you'll get a bit of news. This semester, I'm not going to be using the schedule that was in Desire to Learn. Those of you who were with me last semester remember that I was never bright enough to actually make the items public that I put on the schedule. So I always was under the impression that everyone saw everything and no one else did. It's just not going to happen. So I put the schedule somewhere else. That is the page that looks like this, and there I can just put it in a text file. It's easier for me. So also the links for the homeworks and the labs, they are all in here. But still, Desire to Learn has its good features. It's good for collecting stuff. So you're going to submit all your homeworks, the drafts on Wednesday nights, the final versions on Friday nights, or if that fails, Saturday nights. You put those into the Dropbox in Desire to Learn. It's simple. You'll get to try it out with the homework 0. That's due next Monday. And that way I get to collect them all. Exams the same way. You're doing the exams on a laptop. You're going to be doing live coding, and then you submit them to Desire to Learn. That way you know whether I got them. There's no question about that. I can get them out. It's easy to grade and all that. Quizzes are on Desire to Learn. And your grades are going to be on Desire to Learn so that you can always have a peek and see how you're doing in class. That's all we're going to be using it for news and announcements. We're just going to be using a plain old web page. And for questions, we're going to be using Piazza. And I think you'll like it better than the D2L system. So you need to log into D2L. And as soon as you have added to the class, you will automatically be able to join this thing. If for whatever reason that fails, go to Piazza. Everyone can go to Piazza. You can just sign up, and it's easy. Yeah.
It says to enter like a sjsu.edu email to join.
Oh, Piazza does?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so D2L is not .edu.
Oh, and now you can't even put that question on Piazza. Does someone have an sjsu.edu email? Okay, whoever does, go on Piazza and put that question up, and I'll fix it. Oh, the question that he had was, Piazza asked him for an sjsu.edu email. And that should not be necessary. And that must mean that I somewhere pushed the wrong button when I set it up. And I now need to unpush it, but I will forget by the time that I'm out of here. So if someone could put that question, someone who is able to get onto Piazza, if someone could put that question on there, then I'll fix it. Otherwise, God forbid, send me an email. Yeah, so you should not be forced into an sjsu.edu email. That would be crazy. Where was I? Okay, so Desire to Learn, Piazza. That was one other thing I badly wanted to say. Okay, it'll come to me. So let's have a quick look at homework 0. Homework 0 is due on Monday. And I simply ask you to show that you did basic stuff. So I want you to log into Desire to Learn. I want you to put a photo in there. It's going to be hard enough for me to deal with 120 people. I do kind of want to know what you look like. So put some reasonable likeness that doesn't embarrass you in public. Yeah, you can see my photo in there. It doesn't look great either, so don't worry about it. Just a photo. And then make a screenshot and attach that to the Dropbox. That way I have proof that you did that. Do the same thing with Piazza. Make a screenshot after the login. And that way I know that you're in Piazza. Install NetBeans. We're going to all be using NetBeans. I don't care how much you love BlueJ or Eclipse. NetBeans is it. And just to make sure you have it installed and take a screenshot of it. Any version. You can use the version that we used last semester. It'll continue to work, or you can download the latest and greatest. I think it's 7.1 right now. Yeah?
For the book, I have the 5th edition. Would that be okay? Or should I get the 6th?
You need the 6th edition. There'll be some assignments from the book and stuff, and it would be too complicated to track the editions. There should be plenty of used books out there. So the other thing that we're going to be doing new this semester that you won't have seen is that we're going to be using a kind of a pre-checking piece of software where you paste in your code. So this thing was going to ask for some point class, and you're going to solve the problem. Then you're going to paste the code in here, and then you're going to click on Submit Query. And then if all planets are aligned, then you get back a report, and that report will tell you whether you were on the right track. It won't give you a perfect assessment whether you were right or wrong, but it'll kind of tell you, did your program compile? Well, it didn't even compile because I didn't even name it right. Right? So that way you get to make sure that the name of the class is right, the names of the methods are right, the parameter types are right, the return types are right, that kind of stuff. And that's good for you because it shows you that you're on the right track or not, which is also good feedback. And it's good for the poor grader who has to grade 120 problems, and the grader has better things to do than to rename classes and stuff like that. So that way it gives you feedback whether you're on the right track, and it gives the grader a more uniform set of solutions. So that way the grader can concentrate on actually reading through your code and giving a few pieces of useful advice instead of saying, you should have spelled this thing with an uppercase letter, which doesn't really teach you a whole lot. So you're going to get to try it out on by Monday. I get to try it out to see if it can hold a load of 120 people. Try not to do this at 11:58 because it's one humble little virtual machine that handles all of the traffic, and so it'll not really work so well when 120 people do it all at the same time. And finally, I'm asking for you to attach a copy of your unofficial transcript just so that I see that you've taken 46A, the prerequisite or the equivalent, what grade you got in it, and all that. So just go to my.sjsu, grab the transcript, and just attach the thing. So attach all of that stuff, and that'll be homework 0. You get a point for each of those things. It's due by Monday. On Tuesday, the other thing that's due on Monday is the quiz. All right? So the quiz will say, when you go into Desire to Learn, it'll tell you what the reading is. It'll say section 9.1 to 9.4 of the book, I believe. Now, I realize 9.1 to 9.3 is a review. We've done that before. I just didn't trust that everyone remembered a thing about it. So we'll review that quickly, and then we'll get into the rest of Chapter 9 that we skipped last time around. So go ahead and do that. Bring your laptop on Tuesday with NetBeans installed so that we can get going with the first lab. The way the labs work is as follows. We're going to have 2 people together, and so you're going to have to be sitting in proximity to each other. The first time, that's going to be a big mess. I will publish the list of who's going to work with whom, so I get to pick the groups. You will somehow have to be able to figure out who that other person is, so maybe that's where those photos might come in handy. Then it's going to be chaos the first time we do that, and afterwards it would be a good idea if you sat close to your lab buddy when the lecture starts, so that when we switch from lecture to lab, that it's not a huge chaos again. I realize it's a little inconvenient with the labs with the seating here, but hopefully we'll somehow manage. The labs ask that you take 2 roles. One role is the scribe role. The job of the scribe is to answer the questions and to prepare the lab report. And the driver role, the driver is the one who codes. So one person is supposed to be busy coding and debugging. One person is supposed to be busy taking notes. And of course, the person who takes notes should also look over what the coder is doing, because oftentimes they don't always do the right things, or they might need some hint or something. And when you get stuck, which I hope you do, because if you don't, then I have failed. If you get stuck, you should discuss the things with each other and try to get each other unstuck. So the idea of pairing up is that oftentimes when people work in pairs, they're just much more effective at getting themselves unstuck. There's usually one person who has a piece of the answer, and also usually there's one person who has a bit more energy than the other at any given time. So it often happens that during the first part of the lab, one person just pushes the other one along, and then it flips the second time. So it tends to work pretty well. And of course, me and the lab assistants are there to answer questions, but you should also try to answer your own, to discuss and answer your own questions with each other first. Now, to make sure that it's fair, the roles of scribe and driver flip every day. So if on Tuesday one of you was the scribe and the other one was driver, on Thursday it flips, so that each of you does it in equal part. Once in a while people say, I don't ever want to be scribe for whatever reason, or I don't know how to code, I don't ever want to be driver. I know you would survive this class without knowing how to code, but whatever. And so just to make sure that everyone is incented to do this thing right, you get 2 points for one of the roles and 1 point for the other. So that way it's in your interest, in your numerical interest, to do the flipping. Last semester we had a heck of a time tracking who was doing what. So this semester everyone turns in a report. The scribe report says, I'm the scribe, this fellow is the driver, here are all the answers to the questions. The driver says, I'm the driver, this fellow was the scribe, and the rest can be blank. Except, once in a while one of the questions said, what was your code? And last semester people said it was tedious that the driver who had the code on their machine had to then transport that code, a bit at a time presumably, to the scribe's machine. So whenever there's one of the questions that says, what's the code, the driver can just paste it in. And then the person who reads the lab report just has to figure it out and merge the two. You don't have to merge it. So everyone puts in a report, you swap roles. It should be fairly simple. We'll try it out on Tuesday and we'll see how much confusion it generates. But I think it should be basically clear. That's, I think, all I have. I'll talk about adding in a minute, but basically adding just means you have to come up front and I'll give you an add code. And just be sure that you have the prerequisites if you do want to add. There's nothing to be gained by joining this class without having passed 46A or an equivalent course and knowing what's going on. Any questions? Yes?
Calendar's doesn't have like the homework on there yet.
No, it'll grow gradually. Or if I was in management, I would say it's a living document. So as new homework comes on, I'll add it in. I'll probably clear out some of the old ones. Other questions? Yeah.
Just to clarify, the discussion board is only on Piazza and then everything else is on D2L?
That's correct. Yes?
For homework 0, I believe the link for the tester is dead. Like it doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, really? Okay, that would be a great thing to put onto Piazza. Put it on Piazza and I'll fix it. And you get a point. Well, I'm sure I can fix that with a mouse click. I've used it before and there was no such requirement. Other questions? Yes? Oh, good question. Yes, excellent question. That was what I meant to say. So the way the schedule works is that it says from 12:30 to 1:45 it's the lecture, and from 2 to 2:30 is the lab. And that's just there for some bureaucratic reason. What we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be in here from 12:30 until 2:15 with no break. and we're going to be having the lab in the middle. So we're going to have lecture, lab, and then another short lecture about what happened in the lab. So there's no lab today. I guess that was your immediate question. There's no lab today. You don't have to show up again here at 2 o'clock. There will be no one here, or there will only be a few confused people here. And from next time on, we'll just go all the way through from 12:30 to 2:15, and then call it a day. Other questions? All right, then everyone who's registered is free to go, and everyone who's not registered should show up for an